Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. And we are now on chapter 27, the sevenfold chord of being.
And we have read the first paragraph. We are going to read the second paragraph today. And before we read that, we will just see what the summary is for the first paragraph. Then we'll proceed to the second one. So, I've used my own language a little bit. So, actually what he is saying is, he is summarizing whatever he said earlier. So I have put it this way. Let us summarize what we have studied up to this point. We have seen that there are 7 great principles of existence as envisaged by the ancient Vedic sages. We may divide the entire range in other ways too, but we will follow the Vedic classification. The origin, continent, initial cause, and the final result, the universe, is Satchidananda. It is a subtle substance which is self-aware and self-effective. It has got consciousness and it's got power. It is transcendent, cosmic, as well as individual. Consciousness and force are involved in each other, as is also bliss. There is a knowledge aspect and there is a force aspect. It can be static, it would correspond to the self, the Brahman, as well as dynamic, the manifestation and the universe. The creative principle is the fourth state, which we have called the supermind. It is the fourth from the top as well as the fourth from the bottom. It is a link between the superconscient and the inconscient. It is the one and many simultaneously, as well as the static and dynamic. It creates the universe, descends into it, and governs it. It enters into each separate existence. Therefore, it is transcendent, cosmic, and individual. Rather than creates, it deploys what is already inherent in it, much like the artist who expresses himself and projects himself into his art. This is what he said in the first para. I've changed the words a little bit, but this is the basic idea.
And the deploys is an interesting term.
Yes, that's right. He is bringing out what is already there within him. Yeah. Now we read the next para. The creation depends on and moves between the biune principle of unity and multiplicity. It is a manifoldness, idea and force and form, which is the expression of an original unity, and it is an eternal oneness, which is the foundation and reality of the multiple worlds and makes their play possible. Supermind, therefore, proceeds by a double faculty of comprehensive and apprehensive knowledge. Proceeding from the essential oneness to the resultant multiplicity, it comprehends all things in itself, as itself, the one in its manifold aspects, and it apprehends separately all things in itself as objects of its own will and knowledge. While to its original self-awareness, all things are one being, one consciousness, one will, one self-delight, and the whole movement of things a movement one and indivisible, it proceeds in its action from the unity to the multiplicity, and from multiplicity to unity, creating an ordered relation between them and an appearance, but not a binding reality of division. A subtle unseparating division, or rather a demarcation and determination within the indivisible. The supermind is a divine gnosis which creates, governs, and upholds the worlds. It is the secret wisdom which upholds both our knowledge and our ignorance. The last bit is very interesting and important. So, not a very big para, but full, pregnant with meaning. So we have to find out. So we go step by step. The creation. So, Satchidananda is uncreated. But when it wants to manifest, it starts creating. So, creation is everything below the supermind, right up to the inconscient. The inconscient also is created, but it is eternal. So, the creation depends on and moves between the biune principle of unity and multiplicity. So, we'll discuss this a little bit. At the highest level, it is one. Although it is triple, it is triune as he uses the word, Sat, Chit, Ananda. Although it seems to be three, it is really one, rolled into one. As it keeps coming down, it separates itself. For us, substance, consciousness, force and Ananda are all separate because the one has become the many. So, at the highest level, oneness. At the lowest level, multiplicity. We see infinite number of forms in the physical world. But in the multiplicity, unity is hiding, and in the oneness, multiplicity is present. You can put it, if you want, in mathematical terms. You can say, at the highest level, unity is the one that is prominent. Let us say 99.9%. Multiplicity is a potentiality there, 0.01%. At the lowest level, it is the opposite. You see multiplicity in infinite. That's the most apparent thing. 99.9% if you want. 0.1% unity is there behind, and that we will discuss also. Unity is there, but you don't see it normally. So it's the creation is moving between oneness and multiplicity. It's a graded manner. As it keeps coming down, multiplicity increases, and as it keeps going up, the consciousness goes up, these planes of consciousness, oneness increases, multiplicity decreases. There's a gradation.
I have a question. You say that that Satchidananda is creating and bringing down. Is it not creating through the supermind?
Yes. It uses supermind. It is that which allows the breaking of the one into the many. It is the supermind that does that. We have seen that in the last chapter. Sat, Chit, Ananda, and below Sat, Chit, Ananda is the supermind, which is a creative principle. And what it creates is, below it, mind, life and body. Mind, life and matter.
So Satchidananda is non-creative?
You could say that in a certain way. These are all very tricky things. But Satchidananda itself is using its own supermind to create what it is. It is somewhat like the manager of a big company. He doesn't come down to the factory floor to look at operations. He operates through his assistant manager. So, and finally, the multiplicity is the workers on the worker floor, and they are the ones who are running the factory, but he is sitting on top governing everything and deciding policy and deciding what is to be done. But he doesn't do it himself. So Satchidananda is there. It tells supermind to create the world of multiplicity. You could see it in that way. So, creation depends on and moves between the biune principle of unity and multiplicity. It is a manifoldness of idea and force and form. Okay? Now, idea, force and form. Idea, you could say, corresponds to consciousness, force to Shakti, and form to the substance. Okay, so Sat, which is the expression of a original unity. It's all one, and it's an eternal oneness, which is the foundation and reality of the multiple worlds and makes their play possible. So, the Satchidananda makes the play possible. The oneness makes the play possible. As he says in other places also, there is a static condition, there is an immutability which allows mutability. Mutability cannot exist without immutability. The many cannot exist without the one. It is one that allows the many to exist.
Question. Sri Aurobindo often uses worlds as plural. Here he says the reality of the multiple worlds.
Yes.
Can you enlighten us?
And which is the foundation and reality of the multiple worlds. Multiple because he is talking of the sevenfold chord of being. So all these are worlds. There is an overmind world, there is an intuitive mind world, there is an element mind world. These are all worlds that exist. When it comes down to the lower level, we know that there is a physical world, there is a vital world in itself, where the vital beings exist. Then there is also the mental worlds, where mental beings exist. In the West, you say angels. It's the angels that populate the mental worlds. In our Indian, we say Gandharvas and Kinnaras. Okay, these are the beings that are there in that world. Every world has got inhabitants and beings that exist there. Beings of light. Okay, the gods exist in the overmind plane of consciousness. And these gods are not imagination, they are real. They really have. They have their attendants, they have their servants. All this is there. There is a whole range of being. The Apsaras also are there in the mental worlds. Yeah. So these are all, they are all there. So these are the multiple worlds that he is talking about. So each one is a world in itself. And makes their play possible. The play is an interesting word because play cannot be there when there is only one. There can be only when multiplicity is there can be a play. So play automatically means in the physical world. Supermind, therefore, proceeds by a double faculty of comprehensive and apprehensive knowledge. We'll stop here. Comprehensive knowledge and apprehensive knowledge. It has a knowledge that I contain everything and I see everything as one. Everything is within me. That's the cosmic consciousness. Man also can have the experience, and that would be called the cosmic consciousness. If you read the accounts of all these yogis, they very often have this consciousness that everything is within me. It's working in me. Even the not avatars, but even ordinary yogis also have this experience. Okay, if you read, I won't go into names, but if you read, there are so many in India now who are well known, and they give a lot of talks and all that. They all have had this experience that you are part of me. Not only you, but everybody is part of me, and everything also is part of me. Okay, or I am also part of everything. So that's the apprehending and the comprehending. The comprehending, it has a knowledge that everything is within me. Therefore, I have the understanding of the whole. But apprehending means I know each thing separately. So that is also another form of consciousness, the cosmic consciousness. Cosmic consciousness has got two aspects. Everything is contained in me, or I am contained in everything. In fact, he says in one sonnet, he says, to whichever person I turn to, I see myself with another face. So that's the apprehending consciousness. Okay? A double faculty of comprehensive and apprehensive knowledge. Proceeding from the essential oneness to the resultant multiplicity, it comprehends all things in itself as itself, the one in its manifold aspects, and it apprehends separately all things in itself as objects of its will and knowledge. This is exactly what we discussed now, but if you read carefully, you will see that is exactly what we said. It comprehends, proceeding from the essential oneness. Now note the word essential oneness. It is not absolute oneness. The absolute oneness is above the supermind. The essential oneness is, in essence, it is one, but contains the possibility of the many. Slight difference is there. Okay? So, essential oneness to the resultant multiplicity. The resultant multiplicity, one word, the physical world. Okay? The resultant multiplicity. It comprehends all things in itself. It contains everything within itself. As itself, the one in its manifold aspects, okay? The one in its manifold aspects, and it apprehends separately all things in itself as objects of its will and knowledge. It knows these things separately also, as it is the object of my knowledge. So, I know each thing separately and I know the whole. These are the two ways of seeing things. Okay? This is at the supramental level. But man at the lower spiritual planes of consciousness can also have a reflection of this truth. Even at the higher mind level, you can have a reflection of this truth. You don't need to go to the supermind to experience it. But in the supermind, it will become a living reality. Here it will be an experience. Okay, so, while to its original self-awareness, all things are one being, one consciousness, one will, one self-delight, and the whole movement of things a movement one and indivisible, it proceeds in its action from the unity to the multiplicity, and from multiplicity to unity. Okay. So, from unity it comes down to multiplicity, and as you keep going up, from multiplicity to unity, creating an ordered relation between them and an appearance, but not a binding reality of division. Now this is interesting. The multiplicity that I see is only an appearance, it's not the reality. Okay? So, it's like we usually use two images to explain this so-called division. Okay? So, you take a picture, okay? It's a whole picture. It's one picture. But if you want to make a jigsaw puzzle out of it, okay, you draw the lines, okay, where you want to cut, but you're not cutting. So, this is the secondary status of the supermind. In the supermind, the picture is full. Okay? How the one becomes the many, that's what we are discussing. So, the triple status of supermind we have done. Okay? The first is the whole picture. The second is the lines are drawn where you are going to cut. Okay? That's it. The third tertiary status of the supermind, you are cutting, but you have not yet separated. Now you have actually cut them. It's not a line, but you have actually cut them. But they are not yet separate. So the possibility of the many has come in. If you come down to the overmind level, it would be like moving each piece half a centimeter apart. Each piece you move out half a centimeter apart. Now you go back and see, will you see the whole picture? You can. Okay, if you move 1 millimeter, then you will see the whole picture, but you will see also the lines. So you will see the multiplicity and you will also see the oneness, the whole picture. Move them apart a little more, come down in consciousness to the pieces have moved out even more, until finally at the lowest level, all the pieces are separated entirely. You can picture it that way to yourself. Okay? Or I use another one which is very crude image, but that also is similar. Okay? Take an apple, put it on the table. Okay? It's one. No question about it. I take a knife and I cut it, but I don't separate the pieces. So it is 1, and now the possibility of 4 also is there. Move them out 2 millimeters or 3 millimeters. Same thing again, the same thing. Now you can see the possibility of the many, and yet you see the whole apple. Move them out a little more. Finally, when you come down to the lowest level, they have moved out entirely. You see only quarter pieces or as many pieces as you want to cut. So, but the oneness is there always. But if you are in the physical world, with the supramental consciousness, you will see the oneness hiding behind the multiplicity. There is another way of seeing also oneness in the physical world. Okay? Take any species. Take the cat family, for instance. Or even in the cat family, you take only one species. Take cats. Okay? Each cat is separate. Multiplicity. But they are all common cats. They have catness in them. So, that is the oneness behind the multiplicity. So, they exist like that. Take humanity. All men are similar. And yet they are separate. So, humanity would be the oneness, and each man and each person would be the multiplicity, aspect of the multiplicity. Okay? So, this is what he is saying, that it constantly moving between oneness and multiplicity. Both are involved in each other. At the lowest level in ignorance, you see only multiplicity. At the highest level, you see only oneness. In the supermind, you will see both. Okay? So, while to its original self-awareness of things, all things are one being, one consciousness, one will, one self-delight, and the whole movement of things a movement one and indivisible, it proceeds in its action from the unity to the multiplicity, and from multiplicity to unity, creating an ordered relation between them and an appearance, but not a binding reality of division. A subtle, unseparating division. Okay? Or rather a demarcation and a determination within the indivisible. That's the drawing of the line, the demarcation and the determination. Now, the pieces are determined. Okay? Demarcation is there. So, this is what he is explaining. Okay? The supermind is a divine gnosis which creates, governs and upholds the worlds. Now, this is very interesting because we can give an example to ourselves and then we'll understand the importance of what he's saying. An irresponsible parent may produce a child, but he doesn't care what he's going. He can go wrong, he doesn't care. Okay, he is interested only in producing the child, but he is not bothered about the child at all. Not so the supermind. The supermind is producing the child. It is producing the world. But it is disciplining him. He is governing it. Okay? So look at that. Okay? The supermind is the divine gnosis which creates, governs, and not only that, upholds the worlds. He is making sure that the child gets what it needs. He is supporting him financially, socially, with love, emotion, everything. He is supporting the child.
But when we see such disillusion on the earth.
Now, that's because when you are in the multiplicity, you are seeing only part. You are not seeing the whole. So when you see the whole, you realize that what I am seeing was not the right thing. It's because of the multiplicity and the ignorance that comes. We see so much of. Now, we are all bothered about Afghanistan, where the Taliban have come. Okay, so, but there is a purpose to it. And if you go to a higher level of consciousness, we will see how it is being worked out. Surely it is going to be worked out. Not in limited time, but the divine has infinite time, he will work it out. But everything has got a meaning and a plan. Yeah.
Have you contemplated why it is happening?
You can explain it in one way. There are many ways maybe. But one way is, whenever there is a certain force for change, there is an equal and opposite resistance. This is a fact in the physical world. Because of dualities. Okay? Dualities are there. as much as you want to go up, okay, your power of wanting to go up, but there is also the gravitational pull that pulls you down. Okay, so both the forces exist. And this is true of all things: attraction and repulsion. So, going up or pulling you down. So this is a manifestation of pulling you down temporarily, but it's bound to change ultimately. Both the things exist. The divine is not intending to make the physical world absolutely divine, fully, perfectly. Otherwise, why should he have started the game at all? So it's a slow process, and the multiplicity is slowly going to oneness. The darkness is slowly evolving. Evolution is a very big principle in Sri Aurobindo yoga. Okay? There's an evolution here which is going slowly. The imperfections that you see are intended. You are starting from imperfection and going towards perfection. So it's a play that the divine is playing. And this is part of the play. That's one way of saying. But the other way is that also to everything there is a resistance that occurs. That's why in the record of yoga, Sri Aurobindo talks about the law of gradual change. Otherwise, yoga would not be possible. No? You have to change yourself, but it's a very slow process. You have to put more force than the resistance is there, and then you will succeed. So that is what now, many people are saying that that's what should be done with the Taliban in Afghanistan also. Put pressure on them and don't allow that to happen. But let's see how it proceeds. Okay? So, my first reaction is just that the progress is hampered by the opposite forces that exist in the world. They are opposites, no? There's darkness and light, both. And the physical world, darkness is more prominent than the light. At the highest level, light is the principle, darkness is the possibility there. That's the thing.
But Mother and Sri Aurobindo have brought a greater light to the earth.
Pardon?
Mother and Sri Aurobindo have brought a greater light to
yes.
the earth.
It has to work itself out. Yeah. It is now planted in the world and it has to work itself out. That's a game being played. So it's a slow process. If it was intended to be, the game would end. If it was supposed to become divine overnight, the game would end. But the divine wants and there is another way of looking at it also. Why should we think that the divine wants only light? Then you are limiting him. He wants everything. He wants also the opposite. He wants the darkness also. We are attributing negative qualities to darkness. He doesn't. It reminds me of a line of Byron. Na? She walks in beauty like the night. So, the night also is beautiful. There are poets who say that the night has got a velvety feeling. So that also is part of the divine. He wants multiplicity as well as oneness. So when you are in multiplicity, naturally you want the oneness. But the divine wants both.
So when Mother says that nothing in Orville depends on humans,
Yeah.
that it will be according to what she has seen.
Yes.
Where do we fit in?
Pardon?
Where do humans fit in to that scenario?
Humans are the agents. Remember, is very clear about that. It is the human being who is an agent of evolution. If humans are not there, evolution cannot take place. The evolution takes place through humans, not animals. Animals are not capable of it. So that's why he says, when mankind comes into evolution, that's a turning point. When evolution from a mechanical, unconscious movement becomes a conscious, non-mechanical movement. And that's why Sri Aurobindo consciously was able to bring down the supermind. So now there will be an evolution, conscious evolution, and not a mechanical, unconscious evolution from matter, life and mind. Up to that time, it was mechanical and slow. It took eons and eons to come to this level. But now it can become conscious. And that's another way of looking at it. As evolution proceeds, the time lapse between each stage goes on decreasing. It goes faster. That's what we are seeing in technology also. Every 6 months, new things are coming out. It gets faster and faster. Okay? So, we have got one line, demarcation and determination within the individual. The supermind is the gnosis which creates, governs and upholds. This is something that he goes on saying everywhere, and this we must understand. What does it mean? It is creating, but it's also fully governing. It is in charge. It is allowing everything to happen, and it upholds the worlds also. It is the secret wisdom which upholds both our knowledge and our ignorance. It is upholding the darkness also. It is allowing the light to manifest, but it is also upholding the darkness. Without the light, the darkness can't exist by itself. This is what even science says. It's very interesting. But there is no such thing as absolute cold. It doesn't exist by itself. It is absence of heat that is the cold. Cold is not a fundamental reality by itself. Light is the fundamental reality by itself. Darkness is a result of light diminishing and reducing itself. So that is the only reality. The world is a reality, but it's a conditional reality. It's not an absolute reality. The absolute reality is only the Satchidananda. The superconscient is the absolute reality. The inconscient is a reality, but it's a conditional reality. Without that, it cannot exist. Just like the shadow. The shadow is real. There is shadow there, darkness. But it is conditional. It can exist only under certain conditions. Switch off the light, there will be no shadow. Okay? So the world is a conditional reality. This in many other words also, Shankara also says the same thing in different words. Okay? So, now this is simply saying that ignorance also is upheld by the Satchidananda. So now Srimad is saying, we have discovered that also that mind, life and matter are a triple aspect of these higher principles working so far as our universe is concerned in subjection to the principle of ignorance, to the superficial and apparent self-forgetfulness of the one in its play of division and multiplicity. Really, these three are only subordinate powers of the divine quaternary. Mind is a subordinate power of supermind which takes its stand in the standpoint of division. Actually forgetful here of the oneness behind, though able to return to it by re-illumination from the supramental. Life is similarly a subordinate power of the energy aspect of Satchidananda. It is force working out form and the play of conscious energy from the standpoint of division created by mind. Matter is the form of substance, of being, which the existence of Satchidananda assumes when it subjects itself to the phenomenal action of its own consciousness and force. So, in this para, he is establishing the connection between the higher and the lower. Most of the people in philosophy field or even spirituality, they say that spirit and matter are unconnected. They have nothing in common. They are opposites. Even in the Western world also, you have something that the physical world is unreal. I think Berkeley was the one who said that. I'm not sure. I can't remember now. So, Srimad is saying there is a connection. And because there is a connection, a divine life on earth is possible. If there is no connection, that would not have been possible. So, what is the connection? He is telling you, Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat becomes matter. Chit becomes the vital. Okay? Ananda becomes a psychic being. and supermind becomes the mind, but this becoming is a diminution and a distortion, and it becomes a shadow of those things. So subtle substance becomes matter, Chit Shakti becomes the vital energy, prana, because it is Shakti. Ananda becomes the psychic being. That's why the psychic being's nature is Ananda, utter bliss. Then supermind becomes the mind. Now it's interesting, but if you draw the lines like that, you will see that supermind is the dividing line. You see, when the reflection occurs, left becomes right, right becomes left. Okay, if you see in a mirror, you will see that right and left get exchanged. So that's exactly what's happening. The superconscient becomes the inconscient. Okay, the subtlest matter becomes the grossest matter. Okay, so the force, infinite force, becomes incapacity, and light becomes darkness. And the supermind, that's a dividing plane between the two. That's what he's saying.